So good morning. We're going to start solving this warm-up equations. So we're gonna solve for x. I'm gonna rewrite the equation right here. We're gonna solve for x by adding the 5 first. It's gonna give us 2x is equal to negative 12. Then we divide both sides by 2, and we're going to get x is equal to negative 6. I'm going to erase the work as I go in order to be able to have space to solve for all of them. Now the next one is 2x minus 4 over 3 is equal to 8. To get rid of that bottom part of the fraction 3, what do? We multiply by 3 on both sides. That cancels the 3 and the 3. So we're going to get 2x minus 4 is equal to 24. Then I'm going to go ahead and add that 4 on both sides, which is going to give me 2x is equal to 28. Then afterwards, I divide both sides by 2, and I get x is equal to 14. Okay. Now for the inequalities, we have 5 is less than t plus 9. I will subtract 9 on both sides. We're going to get negative 4 is less than t. We can rewrite it as t is greater than negative 4 by keeping in mind that the bigger part of the inequality is still facing the t. So you could write negative 4 is less than t, or t is greater than negative 4, and they're both correct. Then for the last one, we're going to have a is greater than negative 2, greater than or equal to 4. I will multiply both sides by negative 2. And since I'm multiplying by a negative, it's going to flip the sign to less than or equal to negative 8. So our objective for today is to solve inequalities that contain more than one operation. So inequalities that contain more than one operation require more than one step to solve. Use inverse operations to undo the operations in the inequality one at a time. Again, this is just like solving equations like we've been doing, but instead of an equal sign, we have an inequality sign, and the only difference is it flips if you multiply or divide by a negative. So to do number A, or letter A, at first we're going to have to subtract by 7 on both sides, which is going to be, we're going to be left with y over negative 6 is less than 2. Afterwards, I multiply by negative 6. Again, because we're multiplying by a negative number, we're going to get y flips the sign is greater than negative 12. So I'm going to just plop in some numbers. It's going to be an open circle, and it's going to look right. Now for the second one, I'm going to go ahead and add the 4 on both sides, and I'm going to get 2v. It's greater than or equal to 12. I divide both sides by 2, and I get that v is greater than or equal to 6. And I'm just going to plop in 3 numbers. Again, it's a closed circle, and we're going to go to the right. So to be able to solve for this one, you want to make sure all the x's are on one side and all of the constants are on the other. I would personally recommend to always have the x on the left. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract the 2x on both sides. And 6x minus 2x is 4x. Minus 5 is less than 11. Then I go ahead and I'm going to add that 5 on both sides. It's going to give me 4x is less than 16. Then I'm going to divide both sides by 4. And I get x is less than 4. And I'm just going to put 3 numbers on the number line. Make sure it's open. And we draw the arrow to the left. So these types of equations, let's start to solve A so I can explain it. So we're going to get AB minus 3 is greater than, I'm going to distribute that 4. AB is, and then 12. I will subtract the AB to get them both on the same side. But notice that 8B minus 8B cancels out, and I'm left with negative 3 is greater than 12. Now, this statement is false, right? So this is how you determine if an equation is false or true. If the variable cancels out, then it would either be a true or a false statement. So let's read what they have right here on the side. Looking for structure. When the variable terms on each side of an inequality are the same, the constant term will determine whether the inequality is true or false. So as we saw for A, negative 3 is not greater than 12, so therefore it's a false inequality. When we solve for B, we're going to get 2 times 5 is 10W. 2 times negative 1 is negative 2, less than or equal to 7, plus 10W. Now I'm going to subtract the 10W from both sides, as I want to make sure they're all together. Now they cancel out because 10 minus 10, both of them having a W, is going to cancel them. So I'm left with negative 2 is less than or equal to 7. True. Because negative 2 is less than or equal to 7, this inequality would be true. And that's how you would leave it. You cannot graph these. So to solve this one, I'm actually going to go ahead and subtract the 8 on both sides. Now 29 minus 8, it is 21. So we get negative 3y is greater than or equal to 21. I'm going to divide by negative 3. And because I am dividing by a negative, the sign's going to flip from greater than or equal to less than or equal to. And then 21 divided by negative 3 is negative 7. So I'm going to go ahead and on the number line, write negative 7, negative 6, and negative 8. Just to put 3 points, that makes sense. It's a closed circle because of the equal sign at the bottom of the less than or equal to. And it's going to the left. So in order to solve for this one, I'm going to subtract by 6 on both sides, which is going to give me negative 12 minus 6. Since they're both negative, it's going to just be an addition. So we're going to get negative 18 is greater than or equal to 3x. Afterwards, I'm going to divide both sides by 3. So 18 divided by 3 is negative 6 is greater than or equal to x. Now, I like having the variable on the left, so I'm just going to rewrite it as x is less than or equal to negative 6. Again, keep in mind, the small part of the inequality is facing the x. The small part of the inequality is facing the x. Now, for graphing it, we're going to get negative 6, negative 5, negative 7, just to plop in 3 numbers. Closed circle, and it's going to the left. So the first thing I would like to do here is to get rid of that negative 2 in the denominator. So I'm going to multiply by negative 2 on both sides. Now, because I am multiplying by a negative, it flips the sign. Afterwards, I will get and subtract that negative 5. Again, since they are different, they are the same sign, both negatives. It's just an addition, negative 6 plus negative 5. So it's going to be negative 11. Again, open circle and to the left. In order to solve for this one, again, we want to start by multiplying out that negative. So we're going to multiply that that fraction. Then it's going to be 1 minus 2n is greater than or equal to 21. I will subtract the 1 from both sides, and I'm going to be left with negative 2n is greater than or equal to 20. I will divide both sides by negative 2, and I'm left with n is less than or equal to negative 10. I'm going to choose a few points, negative 9, negative 10, negative 11. It's going to be a closed circle, and it's going to go left. All right, to solve more complicated inequalities, you may first need to simplify the expression on one or both sides by using the order of operations, combining like terms, or using the distributive property. What that means is you guys most likely will have, let's say, x's on the left and other terms on the right. So you can have stuff that could look like this. We're not actually going to solve it, but you're going to have to simplify the left and the right a lot more before you're able to combine the terms to make it a lot simpler. If we were to do this, we're going to distribute 2x plus 6 minus 3x is greater than or equal to 7 minus 12. All I did was distribute first and then multiply it out that 4 times 3. Afterwards, I would actually choose to combine these two x's to give me negative x plus 6 is greater than or equal to. Now I can combine the 7 and the negative 12 to give me negative 5. Let's say I subtract the 6 on both sides, and I'm left with negative x is greater than or equal to negative 11. And since I want the x to be positive, I will divide out by a negative 1 on both sides, which in turn leaves me with x is less than or equal to 11. Now, I said I wasn't going to solve it, but I did just to show you guys that it would simplify one side and we simplified the other. You can do it at the same time like I did, or you can take the left side and do it first, and then do the right side to simplify and do it second. You don't have to do it at the same time. So to solve this one, I want you guys to realize this negative out here, you can think of it as a negative 1 distribution, right? So we're going to distribute that negative 1, or multiply that negative 1 times that negative 10 to give us 2 plus 10 is greater than negative 4t. Afterwards, I can combine the 10 and the 2 to give me 12 is greater than negative 4t. I'll divide both sides by negative 4, and I'm going to get negative 3 is less than t, again flipping the sign as we divide it by a negative. I'm going to rewrite it as t is greater than negative 3, as I like to write it with the variable on the left. Keep in mind the greater part of the inequality is looking at the t and is still looking at the t, so you know you did it right. Just going to plug in negative 3, negative 2, and negative 4, and then we draw it to the right. We want to multiply the negative 4 first. We're going to distribute it to the 2 and to the negative x. So negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. Negative 4 times negative x is just positive 4x. Remember, when you multiply two negatives, they become a positive. Is less than or equal to 8. Afterwards, I am going to add 8 on both sides, and I'm left with 4x is less than or equal to 16. I lastly divide both sides by 4, and I get x is less than or equal to 4. Afterwards, I'm just going to plop 3 points that make sense on the graph, do a closed circle, and aim it to the left. For this problem, in order to solve it, all you have to do is divide by 4 on both sides, which is going to leave us with f is greater than negative 1 over 4. Now this is just a fraction, so I'm going to write negative 1 over 4. I'm going to write 0 over here, and I'm going to write negative 1 over here. It's going to be an open circle, and it's going to look to the right. In order to start for this one, we want to simplify the right side, which is 5 squared. So we can go ahead and do 2m plus 5 is greater than 25, because 5 squared is just 5 times 5. Just as a reminder, this looks like this. Oh, that is terrible. It looks like this. 5 times 5. So afterwards, we're going to subtract the 5 on both sides, which is 2m is greater than 20. I then go ahead and divide both sides by 2, which gives me that m is greater than 10. It's going to be an open circle, and it's going to look to the right. So to start this one off, we're going to distribute that 2 to both terms towards the x and towards the 4. So we're going to get 3 plus 2x plus 8 is greater than 3. I'm going to go ahead and combine the 8 and the 3 to an 11 plus 2x is greater than 3. I will then go ahead and subtract the 11 on both sides Keep in mind they're different sides, so it's at subtraction. So 8, so we get 2x is greater than negative 8. The reason it's negative is because the 11 is bigger. Then we're going to divide both sides by 2. And we get that x is greater than negative 4. It's going to be an open circle, and it's going to go to the right. So we're going to go ahead and divide both sides by 3, which is going to leave me with 7 over 3 is less than x. Now, again, I like to write it with the x on the left side, so I'm just going to rewrite it, keeping in mind that the bigger side of the inequality is still pointing towards the x, as it is right here, and it is right here. So we're going to do 7 over 3, 8 over 3, and 6 over 3. It's going to be an open circle, and it's going to be an open circle to the right. And first, I'm going to multiply both sides times 2. So 90 times 2 is 180. So 95 plus x, it's greater than or equal to 180. I will then subtract 95 from both sides. So 180 minus 95. Going to be 85. X is greater than or equal to 85. So I'm going to put in here 85, 86, and 84. It's going to be a closed circle towards the right. So for number 1, I'm going to rewrite it here so I can have a little bit more space. The first thing I'm going to do is subtract the 13 from both sides. 21 minus 13. 8. So negative 2x is greater than or equal to 8. I'm going to divide both sides by negative 2. And because I'm dividing by a negative, it's going to be x is less than or equal to negative 4. I'm going to rewrite that right down here. Okay, so I can have a little bit more space. I'm going to be erasing this as we move along. Okay, so for question 2, I'm going to write negative 11 plus 2 is less than 3p. So all I really need to do at first is combine the negative 11 with the 2. It's going to be a negative 9 is less than 3p. I will divide both sides by 3, and it's going to be negative 3 is less than p. Again, I like to rewrite it with the letter on the left, so you can rewrite it as p is greater than negative 3. And either one is correct. Okay, for number 3, we're going to get 2 cubed is less than negative 2, parentheses 3 minus t. Now 2 cubed is just 2 times 2 times 2, 4 times 2, so we get 8. 8 is less than negative 2, parentheses 3 minus t. Then I'm going to go ahead and multiply that negative 2 to both sides. Sorry, distribute that negative 2. 8 is less than negative 6 plus 2t. I will then go ahead and add 6 on both sides. So we're going to get 14 is less than 2t. Go ahead and divide both sides by 2. And we're going to get that 7 is less than t. Again, I like to write it with the variable on the left. So t is greater than 7. Now keep in mind that the bigger part of the inequality is still pointing towards the t. That is the key part in order to rewrite it. And we get that 7 is greater than, t is greater than 7. Okay, now the last one, it's going to be 1 over 3 n plus 1/2 is less than 2 over 3. Now, this 1/2, I'm just going to subtract it. Just as a reminder, when you subtract or add fractions, you need a common denominator. So I'm going to get the common denominator of these two to be 6. I'm going to get 1 over 3 n is less than 6. And since I multiplied that 3 times 2 to get 6, I have to do it to the top as well. So 2 times 2 is 4. Minus, now I multiply the bottom times 3 in order to get the same common denominator. I have to do it on the top 2, so multiply by 3 on the top. So we get 4 over 6 minus 3 over 6, which is 1 over 3, n is less than 1 over 6. And then to get rid of that 1/3, I'm going to multiply by its reciprocal, so 3 over 1, 3 over 1, and we get that n is less than 3 over 6, which simplifies to n is less than 1 over 2.